Yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out today. It was a good weekend for us. I thought we played pretty well for the most part. Certainly, as the weekend went on, I thought we played better from an offensive standpoint. The pitching was good throughout, as it normally has been. Played good defense, took care of the ball. Minnesota's a program that's had a ton of success, and we all have a lot of respect for Coach Anderson and their coaching staff. And I know they're going through a lot, both on the field and off, and the things that are going on in Minnesota right now. But I have a ton of respect for those guys, and they do a great job. But I did think that we personally played pretty well, and started to look more like the team that we expect to become. So I'm looking forward to this week. It's been a good week. Practice so far. Have some rain today and tomorrow, so we're going to be dodging some raindrops. But hopefully we can get a good work weekend, and then the fireworks begin this weekend with Iowa.
John and then Carl.
Just wanted to ask about the infield. Tank, Paul, and Kip have been kind of short, second, first. Is that kind of the infield you kind of foresee going with from here on out? And how beneficial, regardless, has it been to have those three freshmen in there kind of growing together as your program kind of builds?
Yeah, they've done a really good job. They've done a really good job, and you can kind of see their continuity and their relationship building. It'll depend. I mean, that's obviously the lineup that we have currently. I don't know that it's always going to continue to stay exactly the way that it is. It kind of depends on how things kind of move forward. I know that sounds like I'm dodging it, but I'm really not. For the foreseeable future, I would say yes, unless there's something that happens that disallows us from doing that. But they've done a good job. They've done a good job. Kip and Tank especially, being true freshmen, their first time in college, and Paul had their red shirt last year with the injury, but those guys to be able to play defense the way that they have has been really impressive. The way that they manage their at bats. I know, Tank from an offensive standpoint, the numbers don't always indicate the quality of his at bat, and the numbers will follow. But he's on base once or twice a game. The walks, the extended at bats, the pitch counts, and then Kip's had a lot of really big RBIs and done a really good job defensively there. So I would say for the foreseeable future, outside of something happening, behind the scenes that disallows us from doing that, but we would like to move forward in that direction if we can. Yes.
Carl, then we got two from Tom.
Look, Coach, the second game of the Ohio State series on April 3rd was the last time anyone other than Colin Hopkins has caught for you in a game. Is Jacob Southern ready to go if he is needed? And how do you feel about how Colin is handling the extended workload?
Yeah, Jacob's ready to go if he's needed and if he's called on. Without us having midweek games and with us having the 3-game weekends, we felt like Colin could handle the workload, and so without pushing him. So there are not very many positives to our decision, the Big Ten's decision to not play midweeks, but the one positive is that we don't have the workload on the catcher that we would normally have. So you're able to give him a little bit of a breather throughout the midweek, and then go out in the weekends and be able to play all 3 games. So we'll continue with that, unless there's a situation that we can't, and when we won't overextend Colin. If we get to those 4-game weekends, we'll have to probably revisit it a little bit. But Colin's done a good job. Obviously, defensively, he's always really strong, but his throwing has really improved. If you've noticed, even his throws between innings are significantly improved. His arm strength has really improved, and so you look at where Jacob is a terrific kid and a really hard worker. Jacob's got a great arm, a really, really strong arm, can really throw. And that's something that Colin's worked very hard on. And you don't feel like there is a kind of a difference there at this point. Or the difference is negligible. And then Colin's been so good offensively the last several weeks. We're really just like the quality of his at-bats. That Illinois weekend, I know he hit the walk-off home run, but the Comia kid did a great job. He took 2 or 3 hits away from Colin that weekend. And when you just put enough balls on the barrel, eventually your hits start to fall, and they fell in bunches for Colin, this weekend. And outside of the young man from Iowa who had a great weekend, Colin's probably the offensive player of the week if that young man doesn't hit over 700 for the weekend. So he's just done a really good job, and overall, I felt like he's given us the best chance to win on a daily basis. Doesn't mean that Jacob can't do it. He certainly can, and has proven his ability to do that in the past. But without the midweek game and the increased workload, we feel like Colin can handle what he's doing right now and doing a good job with it. So we'll move and we'll continue to stay in this direction for as long as we can. And if we have to change, we'll adjust.
All right, 2 from Tom, and then we'll go to Griffin.
Jeff, what is it about Grant Richardson that makes him such a special player?
Well, he's very physically gifted, which when you look at the majority of players that play through the middle of the diamond, they have to have a requisite amount of physical ability, and he does. He's got strength and twitch, which God gave it to him. And I didn't, nobody else did, and he's fortunate to have it. So he's got the ability to do some really unique things that not a lot of guys can do with the strength and the physical and the twitch that goes along with it. And then on top of that, he's a great worker. He's a really good kid. He's a great worker, and he really invests himself into his craft. And so you're watching a guy who, from a northern area, from a northern state, in a northern part of the state, he grew up primarily in Fort Wayne, play a position that not a lot of northern guys play at a high level, just from there's the reps. Like, it's just a lot harder. You need a lot of reps. You need to really be able to play a ton of baseball to be able to play, shortstop, center field, something, one of those kind of primary positions from the north. And he's done a good job at it. He works really hard. He's really invested. He cares tremendously. He cares about, obviously, his growth, but also the team. And so when you have a guy who has great physical ability, who cares about the team, who's not selfish, and those traits lend to having a really unique player and a unique person. And Grant is all those things. And so we're very, very fortunate to have him. But I would say, first and foremost, he has special ability, God given, that he's worked hard to craft and to becoming a really good player.
And secondly, you've got 17 games to go. All 17 are against teams with a 500 record or better. Do you feel going into Friday that this is definitely the start of a true home stretch?
Yeah, we've had to work ourselves to be in the position to control our own destiny, knowing that this part of the schedule was going to come up. And that's with all respect to everyone else on the schedule that we've played. But knowing that if we took care of what we need to take care of, especially after the Ohio State weekend where we certainly didn't play very well, if we got ourselves in a position to go into the last several weeks here, the last 17 games, as you said, within striking distance, that we were going to control our own destiny, and we were going to be able to go out and play well. I've said that from the beginning, and even when we're playing well, when we haven't played well, that I've got great confidence in the team. I've got great confidence in the ability of the team, and I still do. And so I like where we are currently. I feel good about where we are. I feel like we're starting to play our best baseball to an extent, knowing that there is still more on the table for us. I feel like there's still more that we're capable of doing. But moving into this stretch, I do feel good, and I feel like the boys are prepared. They're prepared to go and compete at a really high level. We're going to have to, but I do feel positive about it. And you're right, we are on the stretch. It's time to go. It's time to go play really well. It's time to compete. It's time to put it all together and go find out what we're made of.
And I said 17 because of not assuming no Illinois makeup. Is there any update on that at all?
We've talked a little bit about it. We're going to continue to work on trying to find a way to do that, obviously with the administrations and whatnot, but we are working. We don't have a date set currently, though.
All right, Griffin, then we're back to John, then Carl.
Yeah, Coach, I know Drew had another really big weekend. He's, in his fourth year. Obviously, he's the leadoff hitter. How important, though, is he as well for in the locker room, and especially leading a lot of those younger guys that you've talked about?
Yeah, Drew's really the kind of the consummate elder statesman, where he's able to be a conduit and an in-between communicator for the coaching staff and other guys. Where there'll be times when, just like this past week on Saturday, we had practice, but we just had individual groups, so individual offensive groups, just kind of talking about game notes, going through the game, pitch selection, approaches, then we go in and hit, and just try to kind of correlate the two. And so we're in the meeting and we're talking about different pitches and how we want to manage at bats and handle at bats. And one of the young guys is like, I just don't understand. Like, I just don't understand. It's a little bit frustrating for me to be able to apply what you're asking me to apply. And Drew kind of steps in and says, hey, like, can I take this one? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Take the question. And so Drew takes it and communicates the way that he applies it in real time, like how we apply practice to the game in real time, and how he does that. And you could just kind of see like the understanding piece where it's like, okay, I can understand as Drew applies what he's talking about. It's a more loose concept where we have to individualize and become kind of the player that we each are. And this is how Drew applies it. And there's 5 or 6 guys in the room, and you could just see like that makes a ton of sense. And so it's moments like that where Drew's able to communicate and apply what he's learned and help the other guys grow through it. So he's tremendous in the locker room. The way he takes care of his body. I mean, he is a really physically strong kid. You know, he's transformed his body tremendously from 2 years ago. You know, I'll walk to the cages and he'll be in there hitting. He may be in a cutoff or have his shirt off in there hitting on an off day, and it's like he looks like Rambo with the hair, you know, the hair pulled back, and he's really strong, and that carries it that carries over. And other guys see that and understand how to lift and how to live and how to work, and he's a great role model. He's a great leader. He's a tremendous person. And on top of it, he may have one of, if not the most difficult academic workloads on the team, and carries all of it, you know, with a nearly 4.0 GPA, and is a great player. So yeah, you're really fortunate to have him. Fortunate to have him in the locker room, on the field, in the classroom. He is the consummate professional.
John, and then Carl.
Paul Tates, he obviously missed last year with an injury. If you kind of go back to then to now, how has he put himself in position to be kind of the hitter and the steady player that you've had? And the second part of that, you talked about he is an emotional guy. Like at the beginning of the season, you're saying he just wants to go. Have you had to manage that at all during the season? How has he done with that?
Yeah. Paul got himself in shape, which was a huge part of it. He got himself physically in shape. He was a little bit heavy. And you know, he's a fine runner. He's not an elite runner. He's a fine runner. And so for him to have the lateral quickness to play the position, he's got to get himself in really good shape. And he did that. You know, he lost a lot of kind of that high school baby weight a little bit, and turned his body into a young man's body and got a lot faster, a lot quicker there. He's always been a really talented offensive mover. The way that he moves the bat, the way he moves his body, it's just a very natural hitter in that regard, and he's made some nice improvements through that. To your point, his just controlling his emotions is a daily battle for him, as it is with a lot of players. It's not just him, and I had it as a player as well, where you're so competitive and you want to do well so badly, and you feel like, especially as a young guy getting in there. And it's like when we first get in, our perspective is like, I just want to be able to play. Now that I'm able to, I just want to go in and impact in any way that I can. Well, then when you get there, the perspective changes a little bit. And it's like, well, now I want to play, but now I want to play really well. And now I want to help the team, and I want to win, and I want to do everything I'm supposed to do. And sometimes our perspective, you know, we always have to be able to check those things. And he's one of those guys. He's super competitive and he wants to do well, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You need guys like that, and he needs to be like that. But as a young player, the balancing act between using my competitiveness and my desire to win as a positive in a way that drives me to success, and then not allowing it to kind of overwhelm me and lead to some there's just some negative self-talk and some doubt and some frustration, where it can kind of take you into not as good of a place. And that's a battle that all players have to battle, and Paul's no different. But he is a talented guy, and it's his first time going through it, and so there's a lot that he has to continue to learn and grow through, just like all those guys. But you hit the nail on the head there. He's been a really good player. He's done a really good job, and I think his best is ahead of him as he learns to manage all the different pieces of the game consistently.
All right, Carl, and then we'll wrap up with Austin.
Okay, Coach, I've got two here. The first is your hitters are going from facing starters with 5+ ERAs this past weekend to a couple of guys with sub-3 ERAs. What are you doing for that adjustment week to week?
Well, it depends on what the guy is. Now we're going into this weekend with some of the lefties that are going to be, obviously their numbers indicate they're dangerous guys. So we've got the win reality stuff. We have those guys, those starters programmed into the win reality. So those guys are able to get all their virtual at bats. We've got the spin ball machine that's fired up from, we've got their TrackMan profiles programmed into the spin ball machine. So those guys are able to see all the pitches that they'll see. So we can mimic those at bats both virtually and in real time throughout the course of the week. And just the reality is you have to try to add one offensive player to the mix each week, just until you can work to a full lineup. And there was a point in time where offensively we were working with 3 or maybe 4 guys at a time. And you're just trying to build to where you can get to 5. Can we get to 5 guys and then 6 guys and 7 guys? And if you can start to get to 8 or 9 guys where you can line them up in a row and somebody has to wade through 9 guys in a row consistently over 9 innings, at some point you'll break through. Now you may end up with 12 strikeouts and you may hit 3 double play balls, but at some point you're going to break through if you can have 9 guys that can consistently put together at bats. And we haven't had that throughout the course of the year on a day in and day out basis, but I feel like we're really close to having 9 guys in a row that can do that. So I know that seems rather obvious, but to your question, Carl, one is you're preparing them to face the guy that you're going to face. So from a preparation standpoint, but then the part is like, who do we need to spend a lot of one-on-one time with to be able to add to the fold to give us a more lineup depth, right there. Morgan's done a really good job, but there was a point in time where Morgan wasn't an everyday guy. And you're like, I think this guy can be an everyday guy. We got to see how close we can get him. And there was a time when Colin wasn't swinging it very well. It's like, well, I think this is a guy that we can have every day. We got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with him and pull those guys into the fold. And now they've been able to work themselves into the fold consistently. And so now it's just the same thing, on and on and on you go until you can get all 9 guys. And those are the things that you have to do to be able to beat really good teams and really good arms like we're getting ready to face. And then you got to try to find a weakness. Can a guy not get off the mound? Can you bunt on him? Can you push bunt? Can you steal? Can you double steal? Right? It's like we're not in a position always where we're just going to be able to line up and straight steal second base, but we're pretty good at double steals. Right? We're pretty good at finding that window where the second baseman or shortstop gives us a crease. And we've had probably 5 or 7 double steals where you change or you give yourself the chance to change the game in that regard. So can you steal home, right? What can you do? Where's the crack with a certain team that you can slide your way into and make sure you spend all week preparing for those things. I like 3-run home runs. Those are great. Those are always fun, but you just can't rely on it consistently to win ball games at an elite level. On a Friday night, it's really hard to hit 2 3-run homers and sit back and watch the ball game. You're going to have to be a more active participant throughout. So those are some of the things that we spend on a weekly basis trying to find a way to compete against really good pitching staffs like we're going to face this weekend.
And the second one is a little bit lighthearted. We know your program is very analytical. You've got an actual rocket scientist in Denton on your staff. Since 2018, the team has scored 8 runs or more in a single inning 5 times. The last of those was this past Sunday. All but one of those happened in the Sunday Reds. Is the overwhelming statistical evidence swaying you to use the red pants more?
Yes, that's exactly. You're right. It all comes. It's like was it? Oh man, who was it? Jerry Jones or Al Davis? It's like just win, baby. Right? It's like whatever it takes to get the win. No, the Reds. We've talked about it. They're not my absolute favorite in the whole world, but the kids really like them, and so we tell them if we get the Sundays with the chance to sweep, then we can wear the Reds. And they were fired up. I mean, they were excited. So you can't ever say that I don't compromise. You can't call me that I'm not really compromised or rational. But now that you say that with the statistics, we might have to wear them more often. Just wear them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just give ourselves the best opportunity to score runs. Hey, if you look good, you feel good, you play good. For some guys, that's a real thing. Was it Deion Sanders? Look good, feel good, play good, right? And for some guys, that works.
All right, we'll wrap up with Austin.
Al Davis, not Jerry Jones.
Al Davis, that's what it was. I knew it was one of them.
Well, maybe you can get him to motivation on Friday and Saturday to get to the Sunday Reds. But I want to go along those lines. You're 11-1 at home. Is there something special in the water at Bart Kaufman Field, or is it just the fact that they're sleeping in their own beds? Do you think there's something to your success at Bart Kaufman Field this year?
Well, Scott Jornstad, my administrator, he told me when I was out for those 2 or 3 weeks with COVID, he said, "Don't worry, there's something magic about the Bart." And I kind of laughed, and I thought back. I said, it's funny you say that. There are some things that I've seen at Bart Kaufman that I've never seen before. I'd only seen one walk-off home run in my life, and there's been several here. I've only seen one no-hitter in my whole life before this year. There's just some things, some comebacks, some wins, some performances that were just masterful that have happened here that I've not seen other places. And so maybe there is something magic about it. And I'd certainly like to think so. I think a lot of it is having, you have more access to our facility. We have more access to the technology. You have more access to the machines. You have more access to the video, all the things that allow you to prepare. I think those things certainly help. And then also you're very used to the way that your field plays. And I think that's a positive thing. We have a lot of foul area. Like we have a ton of foul area at our field. And so that's a huge benefit for us from a defensive standpoint, because we can move and we're built to play better defense. We are a better defense than we have been in the past, and we're built to do that. So, we play into that foul ground. That's much more part of our daily practice. So when somebody else comes in, Northwestern, for example, they have very little foul ground. So our guys are used to going in the foul ground and making those plays, and those guys may or may not be as used to those kind of things. The way the wind blows, the way the wind plays, our guys are more used to playing in those situations. So I think there's a variety of different things that go into it. I think as a player, I loved going on the road. I liked the nice hotels, the nice food, the buffets, the whole 9 yards, the hotel rooms. Like, I loved going on the road. The hotel was 100 times nicer than the apartment that I was living in at the time. So I think it has more to do with like just the home field, like knowing your home field, knowing the surroundings, and then the access to just the cages constantly, and the technology and the spin ball machine and the wind reality and all those things that I think really does help. And then I think there's probably something in the water a little bit on top of it.